Good day, welcome to Concept 2, Book 2, the fifth topic in this session, where we are talking about the auditing process, introduction to the auditing process. Dumelang, Lekai, Abshen, Salmonan, Magali, Winand, welcome again, and let's go into the material. So we are looking at topic number 5 in Concept 2, Book 2, which is a topic for day 2 of week 2. If you follow the way the resources are structured, you will see this falls within day 2 of week 2 as we follow the chronological order of the topics in your book 2. So the auditing process, we have objectives that we need to satisfy. This won't be like the details auditing process per se, but this is just like an introduction and overview of what the auditing process should look like. So the objectives for these topics are the following. If you go to the objectives, we are looking at objective number 1, where we talk about the 6 steps that should be in the auditing process for 6 marks. Then we go to objective number 2, where you are required to state what is the objective of doing the administrative system audit. Why do it? And then lastly, objective number 3, where we are supposed to state the objective as well for the field audit. So there are 3 objectives in this topic, nice, sweet, and short. So let's lay the background when we talk about the auditing process. I've raised it in the other previous installments in terms of the segments that I've been doing in these tutorials, where we mention the difference between auditing and the inspection process, because most people confuse the two. Now, inspections are when you are actually going into the field, whether it's equipment, workplace, area, tools, where you are measuring the conditions of such places or equipment or machinery and tools against set standards. In other words, one would be holding a checklist or a standards book, where you are inspecting the working place in the areas in order to identify what we call substandard conditions. So it's about the conditions. Fair enough. But what is the auditing process? When we look at the auditing process, then we are looking at measuring the systems that we have, if they are effective and efficient. These are 2 very important key things. We can talk about it as evaluation process, so to speak. We are evaluating systems. So you've got your auditing tool, whereby if I go to my safety management program and I say I want to audit the inspection system, so I take the inspection system, using my audit tool, I'm given evidence, a file, so to speak, for inspections of that particular section. And then I start asking from my audit tool the questions that should be there, because what is in my audit tool should be telling us what should be in the file, how to conduct inspections, and so on, and sampling the inspections instruments that they are used, like the checklist, the standard book, whatever. And we put that, it is ticked in an audit report, and it is then highlighted what was observed or audited or observed to be present as evidence is then ticked. That is what we call the system audit process. But then that does not end there, because after you've done your system audit, it's a matter of now taking samples from that evidence, and you go into the working place where the samples are directing you. For example, let's say it was level 5, 36 cross cut and whatever the case might be. So you take that sample, you go to the working place, to that area where the evidence was generated from, and you are now checking what is on the evidence. Is it what is actually what you're seeing? Okay? And also obviously talking to the people involved and working in that working place, asking them questions, probing questions and so forth, which we're going to deal with at a later stage. But yeah, so you have the system audit, administrative system audit, because it's about the administration, the filing and whatever. Remember QMS, quality management systems. So you are checking the quality management of the auditing system, and then once you gather the evidence, you go into the field, you do the field audit to check if what is on paper does not just merely appear on paper, it is also in the field. So basically that is what it is in terms of the audit. The nitty-gritties, the technicalities, that's a much more advanced. Here we're talking about the introduction to the process, but I'm sure with the background, if you're an experienced practitioner, this shouldn't be a problem to carry out. There are many auditing tools you can design, you can come up with based on your needs actually in terms of your auditing process. So now let's go into the content and identify the objectives. Let's start with objective number 1. As we said, I've already highlighted this. This is in red, so it is actually objective number 1. What is the objective for the administrative system in auditing the administrative system? And here is the objective given. This is for your 6 marks. No, sorry, for your 2 marks. The objective is to evaluate the administrative system through which the program operates, which is what I just mentioned in the introduction, in the background. Okay. And we go to your objective for conducting a field audit. Again, very important to note, it is in red, and that is the objective for doing a field audit is to verify that safety management administrative system is presented. Remember, we had checked it, the offices and so forth. So we are checking if it is working as intended and does not merely exist on paper. That's the field audit for you. Okay. Now, what are the steps that one needs to follow? The steps is the physical, practical steps of having an auditing system process. Okay. And the steps are simplified into 6 steps, but in those 6 steps we have taken at least 2 of each step in the 6 steps and compacted them into 3 sections so that it is easy to understand the information. So there is the preparation part. So please look at what is in red in terms of the steps. So in the preparation, we are saying you do a pre-audit preparation. In the pre-audit preparation, you are talking about the auditor yourself. Number 1, get your ducks in the row. What do we mean? You have the auditing instruments, the auditing tools, preparation in terms of your itinerary, your traveling arrangements. Okay? If you are going to stay at a guest house, you need to book in advance. Your traveling plans, how are you going to get there? So your security, okay? And notifying the client when you get there or when you are going to get there, the client is to have been arranged. That is all done in the preparation. Familiarizing yourself with the client's core business is also a good thing, and also comparing your auditing instruments with the internal auditing instruments that your client has been using, because in the auditing process you prefer, if you're an auditor from outside, we prefer the client also to do their own self-auditing or internal auditing. Because when we come in as external auditing, we will be looking at as fresh pairs of eyes into what you are saying is okay or not. So it will be advisable to not take note of that, because it saves a lot of time for mines to have their own internal auditing, and then they bring the guys from outside. Other than to bring the guys from outside, that is just money being thrown down the drain. Put things in place first, then you can call people to say, do we have the right things? other than every time you just bring people to come in, and it becomes a trend where people will just give you the tick on paper because they've only done the administrative system audit, not gone into the field audit. So you must be detailed in your preparation in terms of that, because also your security is very, very much important. So once the pre-audit preparation and agreements has been done, you get your client, and this is when you do your pre-audit meeting. So this is step number 1. Sorry about that. Let's remove that. That was a bit here. Let's do this and say this is step number 1. Let me take my pen. So that's 1. That's 2. Pre-audit meeting. In pre-audit meeting, what are you doing? When you get to your client's site, this is when you hold that pre-audit meeting before you go and start auditing. If it is many of you, some can be distributed. You go and do the administrative. We're gonna quickly wait for you to get us the evidence, then we can go and do the field audit, whichever. If you're alone, you can do both. But in that pre-audit meeting, everything is arranged. Resources are dispersed accordingly to the number of auditors, and you're meeting the client's management team, where then they show you where the items are that you need to audit. We familiarize yourself, get them familiarized themselves with your auditing instrument, and all the nitty-gritties. Who is going to accompany who to where? The manager must take you to their area of responsibility, and so on and so forth. So it comes down actually to preparation and planning. Remember, we said good managers, good effective individuals are those with good plans. Then comes the implementation. In the implementation, this is when we do the actual audit. In the audit, we are saying you audit the safety management system, step number 3. You then go and audit this, the safety management system, and you do the field audit as well. You do the field audit, and I've already explained what that is. And then there is the conclusion in the post-audit things. This is when you come out from the audit and you are meeting the officials, step number 5. So you have a post-audit meeting whereby you are giving feedback, which we're going to also discuss how you do it. You are giving feedback to your client about your observations, about your audit points, and rough. Because obviously an official report has to be drawn up, but you give them the preliminary reporting of what your findings are, roughly. So they have a general idea of what's coming. So in the post-audit meeting, you are also probably just observed when you're doing the audit. So that's your meeting with the officials before you draw up the official report. And then after your official report, it is all about post-audit activities. This is about follow-up on your concerns, your reporting that is been received, the official one, that is the official report, final report that is been received, and also inquiring about action plans that should be taken by the management team or whoever is responsible to implement the changes. That's your step number 6 there. So you want to get all those ducks in a row, so that when you do your follow-up audit, at least you know these were the commitments done to rectify and where are they at that particular time. So basically those are the 6 steps in the auditing process. Now over and above this, there is the follow-up, as I mentioned. Yes, the follow-up is also part and parcel of post-audit activities, where you are checking remedial actions, action plans, time frames, commitments, and all that for people who are supposed to. But after talking about the auditing process without talking about why do it is also not good at all. So let's look at the reasons why audits should be conducted. Number 1, it helps us to focus on problem areas. There are some workplaces that are very difficult to manage. So if we continue doing these audits, we must find ways of improving those problematic working areas. So it helps us to do that. And also very important, outside agencies are very important when doing an audit, because they are less likely to be influenced by possible outcomes and less likely to be biased. Yes, unless otherwise some manager decides to meet with the auditor somewhere. We know how it goes sometimes, but we are saying ethics is paramount for a person who is an auditor, because whatever you audit and you accept, if it is not correct, it can lead to problems, even accidents. So as I said, bring outside people who are unbiased, people with a fresh pair of eyes, people with the integrity. I'm not saying the internal guys are biased, but remember, these guys work inside the organization, so it simply means you have to get somebody from outside, so to compare the notes, so to speak. Sounding boards, it's a good like a sounding board. So your internal guys will have their own audit reports. You come in from outside, you do the fresh pair of eyes, compare the reports, compare your observations, and see where it gets you. So new eyes help to identify problems that are sometimes overlooked. Now, the management systems also helps to focus on the overall safety requirement. Auditing the management system is very important, because you want to know what safety requirements are being complied to and which ones are not adequately being addressed. So you only identify those via your audits. That's why I said the purpose is to check for effectiveness and efficiencies of those systems in your safety management requirements. And its legal requirements are identified and can assist management to ensure compliance to Mine Health and Safety Act, which is quite obvious in terms of audits, because if you are not auditing yourself, how else do you know you are being compliant to the Mine Health and Safety Act, which is the paramount book we are using in the mining industry? So you need to have regular audits all the time. So for an auditor to be able to carry out their mandate, you need to have particular skills as an auditor. We talk about skills like your being presentable. Yes, you can't go to an audit and you're wearing t-shirts and flip-flops, and in this day and age, it is just unfathomable that you must be wearing such items that are so unpresentable to your clients. Be presentable. We are not saying dress to the nines or whatever, but be presentable. Okay, we need that in our audits, in our auditors, and also we need auditors who are diplomatic. Here it comes in people skills, communication skills, interpersonal skills. That's being diplomatic, knowing when to be probing, but in a most polite way. I mean, you're asking the core questions, okay? Not taking two ways about it, but in a diplomatic manner. It's not about beating down your client because of your findings. Try to be diplomatic about it. It's the feedback techniques that we talk about in being diplomatic. Yes, listen to their problems. You also give your advice. Other than you come out and you start hammering on your clients, say, you guys are useless. You guys cannot even comply to one simple rule. You guys, that is beating down on your client. You won't help people to improve themselves. So try to be as diplomatic as possible, but in your diplomacy, please be firm and assertive. You must be firm and assertive, because you are saying, yes, you have done this correctly. We need you to do this the correct way, because this is not right. So we need you to be firm as well. Okay? Also, use your probing mind. Probing minds are very good for auditors. Ask questions. Okay? Why is this like this? Why should you do it like that? Why is there any other way of doing it? Do you think this can be sustainable? Probing questions, asking the employees in that working place. Find out what they understand, their knowledge of what you are doing. Because remember, at the end of the day, as we said, it affects the employees in the working place. Because when accidents come, it always hits home at the people on the call face themselves. So use the probing mind even to speak to the guys at the bottom. Don't be an auditor who goes into a working place and all you worry about is, yes, you must have the management team around, but there's nothing that stops you from also talking to the guys at the bottom who are on the call face. Ask them questions, probe until you get to the bottom of the reasoning behind why something is put in place. Then we talk about credibility. Yes, we know we have been sought with corruption and all that, way auditors are paid off to look the other way. One doesn't have to think far than to look at the ESCOM saga, all the state-owned enterprises, the big auditing firms involved in that, where even at PRASA they are claiming back the amounts. It tarnishes even auditors at that level, and that's auditors at the highest level. But look at your auditors that we have physically in our minds, or who come to our minds. Their credibility should not be tarnished. It should be untarnished, because it involves people's lives here. Okay? I mean, imagine you are given a brown envelope as an auditor, and you are looking the other way, and yet you can see what is on paper is 100% correct, even 150%. But you go to the working place, what you see is horrific. There is not even 10% compliance to the requirements. Yet what is on paper, which is a problem we see in our minds a lot, because it is common. People like to do the paperwork, covering in paperwork. Okay? You don't have to accept such kind of things. So we need auditors who are credible, codes of ethics, who are familiar with the codes of auditors who belong. That's why we've got professional bodies who belong to professional bodies, so that they can be held accountable if ever they are found wanting. Look at the professional bodies like SAICA that are holding people like the former CFO of ESCOM to task. So we need people who are very, very much credible. Okay. And you need to have the knowledge of the industry. That's why I said earlier, familiarize yourself with the core business of your client and the industry per se, and you can be sure you are knowledgeable of what is happening in the industry. So it is a given, you need to have that in place. So that brings us to the end of this installation and this segment of the auditing process. For any questions, you know what we do. We will be clarifying and looking at recapping on the